Okay, so I'm Amy Collette. I see some new faces here today, and I'm so happy that you're here. I'm the founder of a program called Unleash Your Inner Author. And so some of the people here today are authors or aspiring authors, including me. I've been published and have another book on the way. So my guest today is Cathlyn Melvin. Hi, Cathlyn. Give us a wave. So
Hello.
I'm going to introduce Cathlyn so y'all know who she is and why she's here to talk to us about TEDx. So Cathlyn is a TEDx coach and copywriter whose insight has been featured via TEDx, Thrive Global, Fempreneur Online, and other outlets. With a degree in theater performance and over a decade as an actor, director, writer, editor, and educator, Cathlyn draws on her diverse experiences to help mission-driven experts, like all of us, design and deliver their world-changing messages through TEDx coaching and done-for-you copywriting services. When she's not writing or coaching, you might find Cathlyn baking something delicious made of chocolate, making laps on her purple-wheeled roller skates, or reading in the sunshine with her very snuggly and loudly purring cat, Tucker. So,
Who happens
Cathlyn,
to be right snuggling and purring to the side of me right now because
right,
that's
nice, nice. Pets are always welcome on the call. We often have furry sightings, furry friend sightings, and those are always welcome. They add a lot of fun energy to the any conversation. All right. Thanks, everyone. Cathlyn, you want to jump in real quick and give us like how you got interested in doing a TEDx?
so first of all, I'm in North Carolina. I live just outside of Raleigh in Cary, North Carolina, and I am here because Amy invited me to come talk to you all. Um, I gave my TEDx talk. Short version is I had wanted to give one for a really long time, didn't know what my idea was. I owned a different business at the time. And I just kind of kept putting it off and not really putting the effort into, figuring out what that message was. And then I had changed industries. I decided to go to law school, dropped out of law school, and that experience is actually what inspired the TEDx talk that I gave. So my TEDx talk doesn't have anything to do with the messaging business that I have now, but even so, it has still propelled this business forward. Obviously, I wasn't TEDx coaching before I got a TEDx talk, but I was copywriting, and my business grew quite a bit. Like I said, despite the fact that my TEDx talk has nothing really to do with the work that I was doing. And so something that we'll talk about today is just the credibility and the weight that is inherent in having that TEDx logo. So if you give a talk that is a message that aligns with your book or with your coaching business or with your podcast, then that's going to be even more powerful for you.
Yes, we're all looking forward to learning from you today, Cathlyn. So I'll do my quick intro since not everyone here knows me. I'm Amy Collette. I'm author of The Gratitude Connection and another upcoming book called Unleash Your Impact, and founder of this wonderful group. And so we, love to support authors in all areas that we're involved in. And one of the things I always get asked about is marketing, because I think sometimes that our message is different in marketing than it is in our books or in our movements, in our businesses. And so I think that TEDx, like you said, if it's aligned with your mission, then it's going to really help elevate your message. So without further ado, Cathlyn, I'll hand the microphone over to you, and you can just get started.
Would you also mind handing screen sharing
Yes, I
capabilities?
just did that. Just a second.
Okay, great.
The floor is yours.
Try again. Fantastic. Let's see. It's not two. That's the one I want. All right. Are we seeing the screen share? The slides? Yes, thumbs up. Fantastic. So as you were introducing yourselves, I heard that we have a coach, we have a podcaster, we obviously have a lot of authors in the room. And so much of being all of those things, of delivering a message, regardless of our avenue that we choose to do that with, is about our reputation, right? Whether that's reputation by word of mouth or referrals or by being visible and memorable or winning awards or showing up on media. And there are a lot of things that we can do to build out and improve that reputation. We can seek out testimonials and glowing reviews. We can show up for other people's audiences like I'm doing today, like on podcasts or in masterminds or in coaching programs. We can get on stages, we can give talks, we can give workshops, and that applies whether those things are in person or virtual. And some of these opportunities we can buy. Some are what are called earned, meaning you didn't pay for them. You were selected based on your insight, your skill, your expertise only. And some of these opportunities are well-known brands. They can propel you forward just by you showing their logo and saying, hey, this organization or this brand trusted me to speak to their team or write for their magazine or what have you. And then some of them are lesser known. And for those lesser known brands, the biggest impact takes place right there in the room where you're speaking or where you're teaching. So in the chat, tell me, this should be an easy quiz. Which do you think is more powerful, earned media or paid media? Wendy says earned. Yes, earned media is going to be more powerful because people know you didn't just write them a check to get featured in their publication or something like that. And then the second question, as we look at this quadrant that's on the screen, which do you think has the longest impact? The well-known brand that you get to partner with or the lesser-known brand? And well-known is the consensus there, and I agree. So the most powerful, longest-lasting quadrant in this square here is the earned media from well-known brands that's up in that upper left-hand corner. And that is right where TEDx falls. So you can pay for a spot on Forbes Council. You can shell out $3,000 to be a guest on the Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast. But there is never an opportunity to pay for time on the TEDx stage. TEDx is purely earned through your world-changing idea that they call your idea worth spreading, and through the compelling speaker application that you submit to say, hey, this is why you should want me at your event. And I think everyone other than Amy and Kathy in this room is new to me today. So hi, we haven't really met yet. My name is Cathlyn. My pronouns are she, her. And you've already zipped through some of my credibility markers. So here are a few tidbits about me. I am a handstand enthusiast, not a handstand expert, but an enthusiast. And as I mentioned in my bio that Amy read, I am a wobbly beginner roller skater. I'm working on it and having a great time. I bake something at least once a week, and I love my cat Tucker and almost all fuzzy creatures. I'm really just an animal person. And so this is my cat. Here I am with him. He'll also see on my logo that's in the corner of each of these slides, the silhouette is Tucker's silhouette. He's also on my wall behind me in various forms. He is the official Write Cat of Write Cat Creative. And then, of course, I am also a messaging expert, which is why I'm here today. I'm not here to talk about my cat, although anytime someone posts on Facebook one of those like engagement post where they're like, what could you talk about for 30 minutes without any preparation? I'm like, my cat. I could talk about my cat for 30 minutes. But today we're here to talk about TEDx and your message. So the work that I do is all about getting the message that is on your heart out into the world, into the minds of the people who are really needing to hear it. And as Amy mentioned, part of that work is through copywriting. I write a lot of nurture emails for coaches and other service providers. And then part of that work is TEDx coaching, where I take business owners through the whole TEDx process. So starting with defining their idea worth spreading, finding events, crafting applications, writing and editing and memorizing and performing their talks, all the way up to the day of performance. And I always like to start by acknowledging that you have a powerful message to share. How many of you know that? In your heart, you already know you have a powerful message to share. Yeah, I see lots of hands raised. And if you're not sure yet, then just know, take my word for it, that message is somewhere inside you. It's there. There are ways that you can bring it to the surface. You can also let it emerge on its own, but it is there. And that message is going to be the foundation of your whole TEDx experience. So you probably already know that giving a TEDx talk can have an enormous impact on how others perceive you, how many people you reach with your message, what opportunities you receive. And that awareness, that can make TEDx feel like this giant goal that you don't even really get the benefit of until it's all over. But most people don't consider that doesn't have to be the case, actually. Most people don't know what you're going to learn today, which is that you can start reaping the benefits of TEDx brand recognition starting right now. So what I want you to understand from today is that long before you ever stand on the red dot to give your TEDx talk, even before you've been accepted to speak anywhere, TEDx and that brand recognition and that credibility, that can already start working for you. So today, we're going to focus on 2 quick strategies that come from some simple psychology. And yeah, Amy is absolutely right. Any of these types of media that you're creating for yourself, you can probably work the strategies into that we're going to talk today into those other projects too. Here's the catch though, about TEDx at least, is if you're going to use these strategies that I'm going to talk you through in a bit, you need to be serious about TEDx. You need to commit to it. You need to decide that you're going to be on the TEDx stage in the next year, maybe 2, and then dedicate yourself to working toward that. Because how many of you have heard the story of the little boy who cried wolf? Is that familiar to anybody? Yeah, some hands, some nods. So it's the story where the little shepherd gets bored in the field. He calls out, wolf, wolf. So all the villagers come running, and he does that a few times and there's never a wolf. And the villagers are like, what are you doing? And then finally there is a wolf and he cries out, wolf, wolf. And no one comes running because they don't believe him anymore, which, as you can imagine, doesn't work out well for him or for the sheep. So that lesson is, before you use these strategies, commit. So the first strategy that we are going to look at today, and this is my client, Christina Fry. Christina Fry gave a TEDx talk called The Paradox of Loneliness, which is really lovely, and you should check it out. Strategy 1 is that in order to take advantage of TEDx right from the start, use your social media. How many of you are present on some form of social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, somewhere? Most of us are. So post about your TEDx goal on social media, wherever you're already hanging out on social media. And that sounds really simple. And that's because it is really simple. It can be as simple as posting, this year, I'm going to give my TEDx talk. Who else is with me? Or I just signed on to work with a TEDx coach. Send me good vibes. And putting this really simple idea out there on a social media post is impactful for 2 reasons. 1, posts like this get attention. People love to celebrate you. They love to hear about TEDx. So these kind of posts get a lot of engagement, and we all know that engagement begets engagement. The algorithm likes it when people hang out on your post and like and comment. So when people show up and celebrate you and cheer you on social media, the algorithm notices, and they're going to share your content out more broadly, regardless of what platform you're on. And then the second reason that this type of posting is really impactful is because of what's called the halo effect. So the halo effect is a type of cognitive bias. And like all biases, the halo effect can impact its subject positively or negatively. And obviously, we're going for the positive, right? So what the halo effect means is that one small piece of information or experience about you can color every other experience a person has with you or about you. If 3 years ago you were a jerk to them in line at the grocery store, they might naturally assume that your behavior is just always jerky and you're just kind of a jerk person, and that will color how they interpret any interactions that they have with you. And that's not the kind of halo effect that we want, right? So what we want is this. When you talk about TEDx and you in the same sentence, we as the reader, as the listener, however you're communicating, we subconsciously start to see you as the kind of person who does give a TEDx talk, someone who knows their stuff, someone we can trust, an expert. One of you mentioned using TEDx to increase your know, like, trust. Yes, absolutely, 100%. That's so important. The trust that we have in the TEDx brand starts to shine like a halo over you and your work. So essentially, you get to borrow that trust that we have in TEDx and we apply it subconsciously, which is really beautiful because there's so little work involved for you and so much impact available to you. So when we get off this call, what are you going to post on social media? Take a minute to consider a quick theme you want to address or an idea that you want to put out there. But remember, going back to that caveat that I said earlier, if you're going to post, then you need to follow through. So you need to make sure you're committed. So here are a few examples of things that you could use. I just decided I'm going to give my TEDx talk in 2024. Who else is with me? That's when I said earlier. Feeling inspired after hearing TEDx coach Cathlyn Melvin speak in the Positively Powered Authors group today. Hey, that's us here today. And I'm ready for TEDx in 2024. What if we don't have a local TEDx in our area? Wendy, that is a great question, and we'll get to that. I'm going to go through the presentation and then we'll get to questions. But I also kind of like Simon's answer. Couple other options that you could put out on social media. I just added TEDx to my 2024 goals list. I'm feeling nervous and excited. What do you think my topic is going to be? Tell me in the comments. So notice that most of these two ask for some engagement. They say, hey, I'm really excited about this thing, or I'm having this feeling about this thing, or I'm just starting this thing. And then they ask, who else is with me? Tell me in the comments what you think my topic is going to be. Raise your hand. And so those are things that you can consider too. Go ahead and take a screenshot of this slide if you want to before I move forward so that you can refer back to it. And if you know what you're going to post, if you have an idea, type it up in the chat. You're welcome, John. And I know that wasn't much time and I continuously talked, which I know I have trouble writing and thinking when people are talking. So if you haven't quite finished up, bye, Kathy. You can finish it up after the call. And also know that this isn't a one and done strategy. So it's important that you don't just post this once and then never talk about TEDx again until you're like, hey, I got my acceptance. You can continue to strengthen that association between your work and the TEDx brand by updating us throughout your journey. So start posting about TEDx as soon as you make that commitment to yourself, and then keep updating us. Tell us when you nail down your idea worth spreading, when you submit your application, your first application, yay, my third application, yay, my 14th application, yay. Tell us every time. Tell us when you write your first draft. Tell us when you have your first 3 sentences memorized. All along the way, keep updating us every week, every 2 weeks. Just a quick mention of you and TEDx in the same post. Easy peasy. So that is strategy number 1. Strategy number 2 is using TEDx as a conversation starter in real-time conversations. This picture here is Dr. Olivia Ong. She gave a TEDx talk earlier this year called How to Be Your Own Best Friend, and she's already applying for events for her second talk, which is super exciting. So using TEDx as a conversation starter in real-time conversations. The halo effect isn't just about what we read or watch on social media. It's about how we interact in real time too, whether that is in person, whether that is online, in groups like this. So one place that we can use the halo effect to our advantage in this way is at networking events. Again, whether they're online, whether they're in person. The typical small talk at networking events is, what do you do? Who do you serve? What are you working on right now? What do you have on your plate, right? And any of those sorts of questions, you can weave your TEDx adventure into every single one. So again, here are just some examples of how that might come up. Some of them probably feel more natural than others, but you can work TEDx in whatever way feels good to you. So right now, what I'm really excited about is getting my TEDx idea ready so I can apply and get my TEDx talk. Or if someone asks, what do you do? Well, I do X, Y, or Z, whatever it is that you do. And I'm actually working on a TEDx talk about it right now. Cool. Great conversation starter. Oh my goodness, a TEDx talk. How's that going? Another one is I usually work with clients like, and you're going to insert a story about a client here. And then, oh, actually, that's a really great story for me to put in my TEDx talk. I'm going to make a note of that. Thank you so much for jogging my memory. That's so great. Or I decided that this month I'm going to submit my first TEDx application. So the halo effect is definitely at play in rooms like this. And that's really important and useful. But the halo effect isn't the only reason to bring up your TEDx journey at a networking event or in a coffee chat or on social media. So the fact that you're going after TEDx already makes you appear like a leader. So many people, especially business owners, have TEDx on their vision board. So when they learn that you're actually doing the thing, that you're actually going after that goal that they've had on their vision board for 8 years, number one, that's inspiration for them to continue to connect with you, to follow you, to engage with you. They are going to want to stay in your orbit to see what you're learning and what you're doing right, because they want to do it too. And then number two, you'll also be seen as being a step ahead. If they have that goal and you're working toward that goal, that's already elevating you as an expert beyond the impact of the halo effect. So those are your 2 super simple, quick strategies. In a moment, I'm going to take questions like I mentioned. But as I wrap up, before I do that, I just want to let you know about 2 free resources that you can grab up. So one is at the end of the month on Tuesday, September 26th, I'll be giving a live Q&A all about TEDx. So I'll share my own journey plus questions that I hear a lot about the whole process, how to choose an idea, how to find events, how to successfully apply, write the talk, prepare, all of that. And then the second resource, and I'll give you that link in just a moment. The second resource is my TEDx planner, and that takes the guesswork out of creating your talk. It includes a calendar and a checklist that it maps out exactly how much prep time you need minimally to write, edit, memorize, and rehearse your talk. Because the number one mistake that I see speakers make is not giving themselves enough time. And not enough time equals panic later on the stage. And that's something we want to avoid. We want our TEDx experience to be a joyful one, not a panic-inducing one. So I'll drop the links to both of these in the chat so that you can grab them up. And then I want to leave you with this idea. If you want a TEDx talk, you can get a TEDx talk. There are over 3,500 TEDx events across the globe every year. And so if a TEDx talk is on your goals list or your vision board or your Pinterest or your little box, wherever you keep your goals, or if you think that maybe it should be, then there's an event out there for you. And as soon as you decide you're going to go after it, you can start building your reputation as the kind of expert who gets featured on TEDx. So if you're ready, start today. We're going to do some questions. And then at the end of the call, when you log off of Zoom, you know the first thing to do. Go log into your social media and tell the world that you're ready for TEDx. So Amy, let's open this up for questions. I know I saw at least one come through.
Awesome. Awesome. Do you want to stop sharing?
Oh, yeah.
Cathlyn, so we can
all see each
Cathlyn,
other.
first of all, thank you so much. Those are super effective strategies. And I love the idea of the halo effect. I mean, I think we've all seen this. Those of us who are published authors, you get this sort of little celebrity status as an author. People are like, you're an author? No, you know? And so that's the halo effect, I think, that you're talking about. It sort of colors how they see you, the lens through which they look. So the TEDx is so similar, where it's very high credibility, high status, because like you said, you can't buy it.
Absolutely.
All right. So questions, just feel free to just raise your hand, pop in, take yourself off mute, and let's talk about this.
So I know, Wendy, I'll start with yours since I saw it come in earlier. She said, what if we don't have a local TEDx in our area? So you do not have to be local to give a TEDx talk. It can be helpful. That can give you like extra points on your application. And some events will limit, you know, when you go to their application, they'll say, hey, we're only accepting people from this region or this county or this neighborhood or whatever. But a lot of the time, it's opened up to people across the globe even. So I encourage my clients to apply broadly. Think about it like if you've gone through the process of applying for universities, you don't want to just limit yourself to your top choice. You want to apply to some reach events, some sort of neutral, I have a pretty good chance of getting into these events, and then some safety events. And there are a bunch of different ways that I walk my clients through, like analyzing and figuring out, is this an event that is a good fit for me? But yeah, if you don't have a local TEDx event in your area, like Simon said, you can start one. And it's actually a free license. You do have to put some money into it because it's a volunteer project, but most people who want to give a TEDx talk aren't necessarily interested in organizing a TEDx talk. And if you are part of the organization team, you can't actually speak at that event. So you can't give yourself a TEDx talk. All right. And then let's see.
Allison had her hand up, and we've got a couple other things in the chat, but Allison?
Yeah, I put my question in the chat. I'm curious about what it looks like to engage with you, like Cathlyn. Like if I have an idea, but I'm not sure if that's the right direction. Is that something that you help your clients with, or what does that whole process look like if someone were to come to you as a TEDx coach?
So usually when people come to me, they're at a place where they're like, I kind of sort of maybe know what I want to talk about. And usually what happens is when we have that first call and we start really looking at ironing out, okay, what is your idea worth spreading? They'll talk to me about their idea, and then I'll be like, okay, so what I'm hearing is 4 different talks. You can talk about this or this or this or this, because people aren't used to getting so specific and narrowed down. The average TEDx talk is only 12 and a half minutes. But yeah, that's usually where people will come to me, and that's the first thing that we do together is over a session or two, figure out what that idea worth spreading is. That's going to be super foundational to the whole experience.
Thanks, Cathlyn. Okay, other questions, comments?
Thoughts,
Catherine,
feelings?
all we need to do is just go to, like, just look up TEDx.com and see if there's anything here in your local community first.
So I'll put a link in the chat.
I thought it was it's a large organization. You got forms, you got to apply for it, but you just said that even if you don't have one in your area, I know probably Las Vegas, Nevada has one, but I'm just saying, like
in fact, Las Vegas has multiple.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
So this is the first time I heard that it's actually set up by different people. You know,
yeah, they're all
one big organizations going to different cities and.
What the X means in TEDx as opposed to TED is that it's independently organized. So it's a local community member who says, hey, I want to bring this model to my community. And then there are some requirements of like going to a big TED conference and different trainings and things like that. But yeah, they're local individuals who decide that, yeah, this is something that they want to bring. So I put the link in the chat to where all of the events get listed on TED.com. It's not super user-friendly in that you can search for your location, you can see the events that are listed, but you can't get a lot of information from TED.com. So once you see, oh, hey, there's a Somerville TEDx, cool. Then go Google TEDx Somerville and find their individual website, because that's where you'll find information about their team and their theme and their event and applications and all of that.
Okay. And you said the average is 6.5 minutes?
12 and a half minutes.
Or 12 and a half minutes. Okay.
Yeah. Now, I think that will continue to decrease as we're all constantly trying to vie for people's attention on the internet. But right now it's about 12 and a half minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, if other questions pop up for you, do sign up for that Q&A, and a recording goes out. So even if you can't be there live, there's a ton of good information that always gets shared in that Q&A.
Do you also help with the application process at all, Cathlyn, as you coach your clients?
So I coach both one-on-one and in a group, and my group program is actually at another call later this afternoon is opening its doors for the next cohort. And whether you work with me one-on-one or in the group, I take you through the whole process of figuring out, like, okay, what do they usually ask for? Because every application is different, because every event is independently organized. But there are some standard things. A lot of them will ask for a working title. A lot of them will ask, like, why this community specifically, different things like that. And so we'll start there by building out those sort of like commonly asked questions. And then when I work with people one-on-one, we'll go through question by question on 3 different applications, and I will do edits and done for you work for them, so that the theory is, my theory is, by the time we get through 3 of them, you've probably cycled through most of the questions that are going to get asked. And so then from there, you can work on them on your own. In the group program, we do office hours and hot seats. So you can always you can say, hey, this is what they're asking. And together we can brainstorm a response, or you can say, hey, I wrote a draft of a response for this. Can you edit it on the call? But yeah, the application process is essential. I think that so many people, they copy paste, and it just becomes this sea of, some events get 400, 800, 1,200 applications. And so if you can be the person who says, I see you, I recognize the language that you're using to talk about your event, to talk about the speakers that you want, I'm reflecting that back in the application, and I'm being really specific about who you are, who I am, what your theme is, what my talk is, why that matters for this particular event, and not just like in general terms. That's really going to set you apart. So absolutely, yes, as a coach, I work through applications because I think that they're important.
Do people deliver the same TEDx talk at multiple events?
No,
Okay.
you are not allowed to. Nor are you allowed to give a talk that you've given somewhere else that isn't TED. It has to be an original talk. Mm. Now, the content can be a lot of the same, the stories that you tell on all your podcast interviews, or, the stories from the testimonials that you like to share, because those are there for a reason. Like there's a reason that you tell them on the podcast, and now testimonials, they're really powerful and influential. And so you can pull lots of your like sort of repeatable content in, but the word for word script can't be the same as you've given somewhere else.
Cathlyn, I've got a question about the themes. So I have applied for one TEDx talk, didn't make it.
But you're in really good company.
Yes, I'm sure. But my topic has changed now. I've got a different idea, and so my stuff isn't always a good fit for a particular theme, and I've seen people kind of twist their message or stand on their head, to get their message to go with a theme. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about what's most effective and useful for those of us who really want to get on the stage and in a well-aligned, with a well-aligned TEDx location and theme and all of that?
So a lot of the time, the themes are fairly vague and general. For instance, the event that I spoke at, the theme was forward. My talk is called The Brave Leap Sideways. So when I submitted, I talked about how sometimes in order to move forward, we have to move sideways first. I think that a lot of times you're like, with some word association, with some creative thinking, you can find a natural fit for your topic, but under those themes, because they are so broad, the changing places or looking back, or like all of these things. Sometimes you're going to run into a theme where you do feel like you have to kind of twist and turn to put your talk under that topic. And in those cases, I would just say that's not the event for you. You do want to honestly see how your idea worth spreading fits in under their theme. I was just helping a client with an application where the theme was through the kaleidoscope or in the kaleidoscope, something about a kaleidoscope. And we were like, wow, that is a very like specific image. And so we did a bunch of work around word associations of like, okay, a kaleidoscope is reflections, a kaleidoscope is turning, a kaleidoscope is a lens, like, and dropped those sorts of words into the application. So yeah, I think it's creative thinking, but yeah, if you get to a point where you're like, this just feels wrong, move on. There are lots of events to pick from. Wendy asks, what's different about TEDx and the TED salons? So TED salons were established in order to sort of keep the local audience active in between events. So most communities will only have one TEDx event a year. Some have multiple. Most of them only have one. And so salons are like smaller, more intimate events that just have a different vibe than the what we think of as like the traditional TEDx, which is called TEDx standard events. So like sometimes those will be like a salon might be like a shorter TEDx event, but it feel like a standard event. So it might be like you're 3 speakers instead of 10 or 14. It might be like a dinner gathering. So salons are kind of all over the place. When we think about, as thought leaders, when we think about presenting at TEDx, we're usually thinking about either TEDx standard events or TEDx women's events, sometimes TEDx university events too. The other type that I haven't listed out is TEDx youth, which is pretty specific because it's topics that impact the youth. And a lot of the speakers at TEDx youth events are children. But there are also adults who speak on like children's issues at those events too. So those are the various kinds of events, but you're probably going to look at TEDx standard events and TEDx women's events. And the link that I shared, you can actually sort, you can enter like standard into the search bar and it'll filter. So you're only looking at standard events. Anita, I see your hand up.
Whoops. Yeah, I recently, this past weekend, I went to a TEDx salon, event, and I've been to a number of them. I've
never been to a salon live. I've only been to standard events. Tell us about it.
It was fun. It was really fun. And the person who actually runs the TEDx Marin, which is in my area, was one of the original people at TED on the board. And he started there. There was a prize that was given out and all different kinds of things. And then he had done a number of different things. And then he bought the license to do the local one, right? So he has them maybe every quarter. But what was interesting about it, and as I said, I didn't hear the earlier, conversation. I think it's a really good entry point rather than kind of going for, something that's really big because it's locally focused. There's not going to be as much competition. Like in this case, the one that he did a couple of months ago was all around psychedelics, had all, 4 different speakers that all looked at it from a very different angle. This last one was kind of around social behavior. They had one on robots. They had one on artificial intelligence. They had a woman who spoke about, loneliness. They had a guy who spoke about masculine, toxicity. And what was the other one? But anyway, it was really interesting and they were local people. So I think that might be an interesting way to kind of get in it or to go to them and kind of get to know the community, hear the kinds of things that, are done, what's interesting, and then they did a party afterwards too, which was a nice opportunity to kind of get to know the speakers and, get to know the other people in the community and hear what their interests are.
So it sounds like the salons in the Marin area that you've been to have followed more of a like, we are hearing speakers format, or it was the, under 18-minute standard TED format, but in just a more intimate setting.
Yeah, I mean, it was, they held it at Dominican University. It's 800 people maximum, right? They're always oversubscribed. Yeah. And then he's actually,
even that's a lot bigger than a lot of TEDx events, like TEDx standard events.
Yeah. Well, there's like TEDx Berkeley, that's in UC Berkeley, that's even larger. But I was going to say, but he's also looking at doing things like in the interim, creating smaller group, kind of gatherings, which sounds a little bit more like, what you were kind of suggesting.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
It's really great to hear about. Wendy, I realize I skipped over one of your questions, so I'm going to go back to it. Does it help for you to have spoken to several other groups when you do your application? Do you mind coming on and talking to me about what you mean by spoken to several other groups?
I'll try. They're working on my roof, so
Okay.
a lot of noise. Yeah, I mean, if you have a resume of, I spoke to this group and this group and this group and this group, does that help your credibility when you're filling out your application?
Just if you have some other speaking credits. Like so many things with TED, because TEDx events are independently organized, it's going to depend on what that particular curation team cares about. TED philosophy says you don't have to be you can never have spoken on stage in your life. That the idea is what's essential for to get selected. That said, there's a lot riding on an individual organizer's ability to put on a great event. And so it makes sense that some of them would be like, we want to go with the safe bet. This person has spoken at all these different places. What I usually tell people when they're like, what do I need to do before I start? Like, what are the prerequisites? I say it doesn't matter if you've ever gotten up on a stage, because I do think that's still true. But you should have some public speaking experience. So whether that is going live on Facebook or hosting some workshops on Zoom or, speaking at Toastmasters, what you want is when a curation team looks you up and they say, we got this application from Wendy, is for them to be able to go look you up and see you online and see your face, hear your voice, and go, oh yeah, she's already talking about this thing or things that are related to this idea. They want to know you exist, that you're coherent, and that there's a reason that you haven't just like pulled this idea out of your foot. So I hope that's helpful.
Cathlyn, thank you. Yeah, I think you've brought us so much awesome goodness today and just made it a little less intimidating to think about marketing yourself as a TEDx speaker and actually doing the things. So thank you for that. And I asked everybody to put something in the chat about what your takeaways were. What are you grateful for having learned today through Cathlyn's wisdom. So Wendy said, thank you, Cathlyn. That's a good information. Allison said, my biggest takeaway is just to commit with the halo effect versus just keeping this idea internal. Yes, me too. Anita says that also gives you the confidence to know you'll do well as a TED speaker and deliver a great talk. That is, if you have some experience, right, as a speaker.
Yeah.
Definitely helps just to, if the TEDx stage is going to be your first stage, that's going to be pretty intimidating. So when you said, Amy, thanks for pulling this together, you're so welcome. And Simon says to get off my backside and actually do the marketing. Right? You can already point people to your talk, Simon. That's awesome. And Simon, I want to thank you for popping in late. I know it's late in the evening for you, and I appreciate you joining us today.
It's fine. It's either that or do the washing up after my evening meal. So it's a favor.
Just put that off a little bit longer. All right. Nancy says, I need to make a commitment. And John says, sorry, missed most of this, Cathlyn. We'll get you on the recording, John.
Even coming in late, I picked up a tidbit though. Thank you, Cathlyn.
See, never too late to join in. Just knowing that every event and location's application process is different is very helpful. So thank you again, all of you, for coming today, joining in this awesome conversation. Thanks for participating, adding your questions and your thoughts. And Cathlyn, thank you for just providing us so much value. And I'm going to post your resources in the Facebook group, the Positively Powered Authors Facebook group, so that we can all enjoy those and continue to get value from you. So
Yay,
thanks so much. Go everyone. Have an awesome day, and we'll see you. We have another workshop coming up on the 23rd. It's more on marketing, but much different take than we did today. So hopefully we'll see you all there too. Thanks.